Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm going to be reviewing Radical Optimism by Dua Lipa, which came out a few weeks ago, and I just had the chance to listen to it this weekend. And I'm going to admit, normally I would, take a listen or three, if not more, honestly, to, really think about an album, but I don't think my perspective on this one's going to change. I just don't. So, yeah, do with that what you will. So I've been watching a lot of Jenny Nichols reviewing Star Wars content, which is extremely niche and weird. I don't know why I've been watching it, but I have been. So this is going to be a numbered list. Actually, it's not going to be a numbered list because I didn't write numbers on my notes and I don't really feel like going back through and figuring them out. So maybe editing Sharri will, but Sharri is right now is just going to tell you my bullet point of lists of things that I liked and didn't like about Radical Optimism. I will begin by saying this funny story that I looked up I just asked Siri to tell me what the next, what's the name of the, Dua Lipa's new album? And she told me, she told me Future Nostalgia. So I spent all morning a few days ago listening to Future Nostalgia and being like, why do I know all of these songs? Did she release another album that was full of singles from 4 years ago? No, I'm just a silly goose. So this is absolutely Radical Optimism. I promise I did listen to it. And so here are my thoughts. I don't feel like I have a ton of critiques because I think this is a good album. I just don't think it's a great album. I think it's fine. It's sort of is it milk toast? Is that the thought? There's nothing really remarkable about it, but there's also nothing egregious about it. So yeah, it feels like an album full of radio singles. And by that I mean there's lots of repeatable melodies. There's, really hooky beat drops and such, but there's nothing truly distinctive about these songs, which makes me feel like the songs were meant to get stuck in your head but not be impactful, which feels like a really weird decision to make. But throughout the whole album I kept being like, where are the ballads? Where's the heartbreak? Where's the yearning? Training Season, there's some production in, I believe it was in the chorus, but it might have been in the bridge, looking at my notes here, that sounds like that one song that the Samsung washer and dryers play.
My washing machine plays a song when it's finished.
And I couldn't figure out what the purpose of it was. It felt a little bit like it was just there to be there, which I suppose there's nothing wrong with, but again, that's the only thing that I remember from Training Season. I couldn't tell you what the song's about. Oh gosh, I hate myself for writing the next note, but it's that I wrote down that this album sounds sort of generic and basic, which is a critique that I hate. Forever, it's a critique that people use on just female pop stars in general. They use it all the time, specifically white men. And before you say, well, it's just the right wing white men, no, it's all white men. It actually, I personally have noticed that once you're a white man, it doesn't matter if you're a leftist or a conservative, you hate women equally. Yeah, figure that one out, friends. But so it's just and they always call this music generic and basic, and by that they just mean that they don't like it. So I think it's just a dumb critique because what is generic and what is basic? That said, this album sounds like if you told ChatGPT, write me a song that has a simple verse, a catchy pre-chorus, a really repeatable, catchy chorus where the beat drops, and then a super hyper pop bridge, and then we'll sing the chorus one more time. And that's every single song on this album. There's just like no difference. And I guess maybe the idea of it just being, I still don't really understand what the word basic means, but of it being generic is just this sort of foundation that like all of these songs sound like they were made to be played at the club, which there's nothing wrong with. There's nothing wrong with like making an album of like club songs, but also like, then why are we here? I don't know. Like, I just personally, I wouldn't want to go to a concert of listening to this. Like, these aren't songs that I'm like gonna like sing my heart out to like I would to like, I don't know, Beyonce or Taylor Swift, right? So I'm just sort of like, what are we doing here? This one's a positive comment, guys. So Dua has a very do we call her Dua? Actually, I don't know. Like, what is it? Dua Lipa, I'm assuming, is a stage name. This whole video feels so mean, and it's because I am really good at critiquing on really, really good things and really, really bad things, and this is neither. It's like fine. So this is just like my general thoughts, but yeah, I don't know. Anyway, do we call her Dua? Or whatever. Dua Lipa, ma'am? Anyway, she has a very recognizable sound, which I think is really important for brand recognition. But I'm not convinced that that kind of monotony serves a genre like hyperpop, which I think is what she claims to be in, that I think is meant to be like subversive. This doesn't feel subversive. This feels like I tried to make music that would appeal to a broad amount of people, which again, there's nothing wrong with. There is nothing wrong with writing music that would be like, I think the idea of universal appeal is really stupid, but like that would be like broadly appealing. There's nothing wrong with that, but it does mean that it was an album, I don't remember how many songs are on it, maybe 15 of, I'm not going to say they were all the exact same song, but of very similar songs. It feels very devoid of personality. I don't like anymore know who Dua Lipa is. Like this, there's a lot of songs about heartbreak, about like breaking up with somebody and then like being with them again in the future, or like, but those are all very generic experiences. I don't feel like I know more who Dua Lipa is after listening to this album than I did beforehand. But I don't know, if you are like, what is the fan? Does she have a fandom? I think she has a fandom because she does like stadium concerts, right? So she must have a fandom. What is it called? What is the fandom called? I don't know. Anyway, but like, yeah, maybe if I knew a lot more about Dua Lipa, some of these songs would make a little bit more sense. But without starting a weird fandom battle, because I also like the weird fandom battle that people are trying to start between Taylor Swift and Billie Eilish, I also think is really silly right now. But I can say like specifically, some of the things that I thought were really weak about TTPD is that too much of this album only makes sense if you've been in the fandom for a really long time. I actually would probably say give the same critique to Cowboy Carter, that like too much of that album really only is like only if you knew that Beyonce grew up in Louisiana or her family was from Louisiana, and you knew some of the like very specific intricate like history of like the Jim Crow era, past things that would have been discussed in like, I don't know, AP history or something in high school. And so I guess I wonder if that is there, that like would this album have made more sense to me, or been more impactful for me if I knew a little bit more about Dua Lipa? Let me know in the comments. But the album as such, this album feels extremely devoid of personality. And I feel like a lot of the production decisions were just made in a, that sounds cool, what if we did this kind of way? And they just weren't made with intention. And they weren't made with intention, and they weren't made with like a feeling of, okay, what is this going to communicate for me to my listener, about me to my listener, or about the song to my listener? It just sort of exists. Going back to the Samsung dishwasher sound, which I hope I can find and put in if you've never listened to it. Another positive one. These walls, which I wrote 3 exclamation points around. was the first song where I started to hear some yearning, some pleading, and some passion in the melodic lines. I felt like it was the first one that I was like, oh, Dua Lipa is singing a song about her feelings and not just like a generic club song that was like, I love you, let's hook up, or I hate you, you broke up with me and you were the love of my life, or some version of that. Like, it was the first song that I was like, oh, like you were really broken or you were really in love. And really showed off a lot of her vocal dexterity. I wish I had written down what part of the song I felt like I was hearing that in, but I just remember hearing her riff, which for our classical music folks is the same as doing a melisma, and just being like, whoa, I didn't know that Dua Lipa had that in her, had like the kind of dexterity, like that's not natural, that comes from years and years and years of training. So I was really impressed by that, and I just felt like, man, this whole album could have been songs of her just like riffing over and over again, and I would have been really impressed, but it's just not that, is it? Unlike Future Nostalgia, because it's really interesting that I was able to listen to both of these albums within a day of each other, where I could trace a lot of the narrative theming. I really felt like I listened to Future Nostalgia and I just understood exactly what she was trying to do with that piece. So hold tight, because that review will come in a few weeks. I don't know exactly when, but I am going to do it. Since I listened to it, I might as well tell you what I think about it. But I do really like that one. It'll be nicer than this one. If somebody from Dua Lipa's team is watching, I'm sorry. I'm not this much of a jerk in person. And typically I don't like to be a jerk about music. I don't think this is a bad album. I just don't think it's like a particularly strong album. Okay. And anyway, unlike Future Nostalgia, where I could trace a lot of the narrative theming and I knew exactly what Future Nostalgia means, I don't know if I know what Radical Optimism means, having listened to this. And all of the themes of these songs feel really disjunct. Again, it just feels like generic girl falls in love, girl gets broken up with songs, but I don't know who girl is, who boy is, how their feelings are unique to them, any of that, or why it's called Radical Optimism. I'm trying to decide if I should share the next line. It says, Dua Lipa is like if an EDM DJ and a jazz club singer had a baby. I'm trying to decide if that was a compliment or not. Do we think it was a compliment? I mean, if it was a jazz club singer, that must have meant that I thought her voice was like really sultry and beautiful. But I don't know. I don't dislike EDM. I just don't like particularly like it. We'll call it, if you've been on my TikTok, we'll call it an insult avocado toast. Anyway, Illusion, the song Illusion, is the first time I got the idea of Radical Optimism. It's sort of this, I don't know, weird idea that like, I don't know. It was the first time I was like, okay, maybe the idea of Radical Optimism is the like, generally like problematic nature of like toxic positivity and this like, if you dance, maybe your problems will go away. And so maybe it's like a commentary on how bad toxic positivity is, and that, but that doesn't really feel the same thing as Radical Optimism, or it doesn't lend the same thing to me as if I was thinking about Radical Optimism. I don't know. How Long was the second song that I really liked on this album. Yearning, finally, again, is what I said. But then I said also that I think it would have been more effective if it had left out some of that super fast tempo production in the chorus and in the bridge. I think I might have liked it more. But then again, that is a like facet of hyperpop, which is Dua's genre. So that is perhaps just like my preference. And it is all worth saying that I'm just telling you the things that I heard on this album and some of them that I liked and that I don't like. But like, again, all of this is just my opinion. I don't think there's such a thing as good or bad music or good or bad like albums or songs. I just didn't like it. I'm telling you why, but does not mean that I don't think Dua's a good artist and that I don't think this is a good album. I might say that I think I've heard stronger albums, and that as far as like the cohesion of this goes, like that I do think it's like on the weaker side. But again, that is just my opinion. It's my professional opinion, but it is just my opinion. And I'm sure there are other people who, I think I saw HT Hayes. I haven't watched the video yet because I didn't want to watch it until I had, but like it's going to create links between this and One Piece, which is movies and / anime that I have not watched. So yeah, I don't know, let me know in the comments. HT Hayes, if you happen to watch this, hi. Hello. I don't think you're going to watch this though. I don't think you probably don't care about baby YouTubers who are really not your competition at all. I do like your videos though. Anyway, ew, I was in a mood when I wrote this. What was I doing? I was running errands around Boston, which makes me irate. So maybe I should re-listen to this. Anyway, Anything for Love could have been a beautiful ballad, but then the beat dropped. That feels really just unnecessarily mean, Sharri. Why do you say that? Yeah, I don't know. The next song that I have on here is Maria, which goes into songs like Better Than Revenge and Jolene, and I'm sure there are so many others that I could name, or just the whole Chloe versus Jordan situation on Keeping Up with the Kardashians, that it's somehow like blaming other women because your man cheated on you. I just think it's really tactless. I don't care how much you try to pretty it up. It's the epitome. Me saying this is like the epitome of white feminism. Like, there's obviously bigger things to care about, but also like, really and truly, why are you going after another woman when it is a man that screwed up? I just over it. Gosh, guys, the next one's really mean. It says, I hope the end of an era is the single to the end of Dua's hyperpop era. That was really mean. I'm sorry for saying that. I was slipping in a mood. But I guess it means that I don't know what End of an Era was about. I didn't feel like it particularly linked to the end of an era or anything in the music, or the lyrics suggested that to me. But that was really mean and it was unnecessary. I'm sorry. Yeah, I think perhaps my my culminating thoughts on all of this is this did a lot of work, I think, in re-establishing or redefining Dua Lipa's brand. I feel like I'll be able to hear a song on the radio and immediately know that that's Dua Lipa, which I guess there's probably like certain pluses to, but I don't really know what she was trying to say or who she is or what she's about. Yeah. Oh gosh, I feel awful. Yeah, she creates dance music, which there's nothing wrong with, but it does feel a little bit weird to put Dua Lipa in the same category as an artist like Ariana Grande or Sabrina Carpenter. Yeah. I'll keep going because the last thing on here is what I wrote for my compliment avocado toast for TikTok, which is that this is an album full of radio singles, and that I actually will make a video about this at some point. I generally think the critique, like it all sounds the same, is really unhelpful. Like, there does need to be a certain amount of brand recognition in an artist's sound, and like, of course, all pop music sounds the same because pop has like a fairly strict recipe. There is not much outside of that. And I will say, as far like for Dua, she's like one of few artists that is like working really hard on keeping the bridge alive. A lot of artists have like done away with that. I'm thinking like the new Benson Boone song that's really popular makes me feel this way, but that a lot of artists will write a really good chorus that they want to use. So they'll write like one good verse. Maybe they'll come up with one good verse and a chorus that's great, and then they'll like pull teeth trying to put together the second verse that is like fairly weak, and then the song ends, and then they play the chorus one more time, and then the song ends. And I think I sort of miss the days of like, I don't know, 5 or 6 minute pop songs that you knew every single word to. That's what I really like about Taylor. I don't like her silence on public events, on like public tragedies, but that's a conversation for another video. So actually, I will really compliment Dua Lipa there. She's one of the few artists who has been talking about Palestine since the beginning. I really appreciate that. I think if you care, let me know down below. I will make a video about this, but I do think it's imperative that people who have audiences, who have large spheres of influence, talk about global tragedies so that like atrocities like the Holocaust and like what is going on right now in Gaza don't occur again, or don't happen in silence, or don't happen while half the world is not knowing that this is occurring. And I think it's really disappointing that like really huge artists are not talking about it because they might lose some money. And artists who have a lot more to lose, like Kehlani and Dua Lipa and Nicola Coughlan, are using what limited influence they have and putting their careers at risk to talk about it, because they know that their having a career is not as important as Palestine being free. So I really do praise Dua Lipa for that. And actually, while I'm talking about that, if we've been raising money for Rowan, who is a 25 or 6-year-old, I don't remember currently, but we've been raising money for her on my TikTok. She had just graduated from university with a degree in English as a second language. And if you know me personally, you know that I actually love teaching. It's why I started this YouTube channel in the first place, because I realized that I actually love teaching. I love talking about music. I like academia a little bit less. And so I really connected with her, and she's trying to make it to 60,000 euros, because if you don't know, there are many travel agencies in Egypt that are charging families to arrange flights across the border, to arrange like flights and transfers across the border and to safety. So she's trying to raise 60,000 euros. I believe the last time I checked, she was at around 27,000 euros, but it'll be here and the link will be somewhere for you to donate. So please donate to Rowan if you are capable or able to, but of course you are not required to. Anyway, back to Dua Lipa. It's an album full of radio singles, and I generally think that the critique, it all sounds the same, is like flawed for many reasons. And that there does need to be thematic and sonic cohesion in an album, but I do feel like almost every song on this album is a verse that's fully sung in her chest voice, a choppy pre-chorus. I don't mean choppy in a bad way, but just like a very metrous pre-chorus that is like speech sung. And then the beat drops and there's a super memorable chorus. And then there is a bridge that's sung somewhere in her like middle voice or belted, and then it's the chorus again. And I don't know, I get it. I do think it makes sense to me that you create that like brand recognition. I do think that maybe capitalism has just ruined the way we all talk and think about music, in that it's often more important for a brand to be for an artist to have brand recognition than it is to like create really meaningful art, which I think is disappointing. If I remember, I'll put in this TikTok that I saw of an indie artist who's trying to get signed to I don't know if it was an agency or a recording company, but that the recording company like very just specifically saying like, hey, you need to have between 50 and 100,000 followers before we'll sign someone.
Unfortunately, we cannot sign with any artist who has a following base of less than 50 to 100,000 followers.
Okay.
Sorry to bring you bad news, but we wish you all the best. Don't hesitate to reach out again in the future if said requirements change. And we look forward to seeing more of you in the future.
Okay, thank you so much, and thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Which I just think is really silly, because isn't it the job of a recording company or an agency to promote an artist? I don't know. But yeah, that said, the bottom half, the bread of my compliment avocado toast, is that I think Dua is like quietly one of the best singers of this generation. I don't think we talk about that enough. I never hear her talked about when we talk about singers that are really talented. We always talk about Beyonce, we always talk about Ariana Grande, and I think we are finally starting to talk about Sabrina Carpenter. Also Olivia Rodrigo. I feel like Olivia Rodrigo is really known for her songwriting, but I think that she has what Taylor doesn't, which obviously Taylor has a beautiful voice. She's just not like a super dexterous like singer. I've talked about this, but Olivia Rodrigo also has just like extreme talent. Let me know if you want me to review Guts and the Guts the extended version. I actually really like both of those albums, but I will do a longer review if you want me to. But Dua, yeah, I feel like Dua is never in the conversation when we talk about like super amazing, super talented artists. And I really wish we would be. And I also think that I wish she showed off a little bit more how great of an artist she is or how great of a singer she is. Because I think you can hear it really well on songs like These Walls and How Long. And I don't think Levitating isn't on this album, but like I think Levitating is a song that I think of when I think about Dua Lipa, and I don't think that shows off just how talented of a singer she is. Anyway, that is the end of me rambling for 25 minutes about Radical Optimism. So click over here if you'd like to see my review of Kyla Carter, which is an album that I loved, but do think has some things that it could be hard on. And thank you for being here. Let me know what your favorite part of my video was in the comments, and go follow me on all the socials that are in my description. We can hang out. I've been on Twitter a lot recently. If you want to hear my spicy takes about Zionists. Yeah, and thanks for being here, and I will see you next time.